welcome to the Jack News. This is Ron Nielsen, and I have Kelly Ward with me, and we're ready to get started on another exciting episode of the Jack News podcast. Kelly, what's our top headline story tonight?
Ron, in from California, end of last week, California officials cite Elon Musk's politics in rejecting SpaceX launches.
What does that mean?
Well, the California Coastal Commission needs to approve every rocket launch out of California. And because Elon Musk is supporting Republican candidate Donald Trump for president, they are rejecting his application to launch spacecraft from California.
Wow.
So,
Oh, that's a bummer for Elon Musk, huh?
well, a pretty good warning shot for any business person in California. You better stand in the right line.
Okay, with that lead in, we're going to go over the public reports from the Jack News sponsored studies by Survey Fever, the weekly reports on the U.S. President and Senate toss-up races. So these presidential races are the targeted swing states, I'm sorry. And, we've been tracking them now. I think this is the 8th week. And right now we are seeing that Trump is continuing to increase his overall presence and lead. And he is ahead in 4 states again this week: North Carolina, Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona. And in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which are the other 3 targeted swing states, we have the margin of error so tight. I mean, we're having the races are within a half a percentage point. So Harris is up in all 3 of those states, but barely. And it's a very tight race. Now, if Trump can win any one of those 3, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, combined with the other targeted swing states that we've already identified, he will be able to garner 270 electoral votes, and he will win. However, we're still in a really tight race with those 3 states. Now, on the Senate tracking, we're tracking Senate toss-up races. We have a bunch of those we've been tracking the same length of time, 8 weeks. We now have a little news. Besides the Republicans being ahead in West Virginia and Montana, they are now within the margin of error in Ohio. So we have in the race in Ohio, we have Bernie Moreno, who is only 2 points behind Brown, who's a Democrat, which is, he's closing in and he's getting a little traction. Now, if the Republicans can win probably 2 of these races at the most, they probably have the majority to take over the Senate. So that's a big deal, Kelly, and it's moving in the Republican direction each week. We track this.
Well, that's quite impressive if we see that kind of turnaround, and certainly it seems like everybody else is seeing what you're seeing, and the headlines I'm reading certainly indicate that the Democrats are scrambling a little bit to get to find support.
Well, looking at a little further, the Democratic registration for voters is now down from where it's been traditionally in the last cycle. In Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, and in Arizona, the Republicans are actually up. So now in the other swing states, we're discussing Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They don't register by party. But we're seeing a trend. We're seeing some movement, and we're seeing a trend. So recently, we saw and heard from a few notable Democrats trying to influence support for Harris Walz, and in particular, they're identifying Black males. So there's a lot of different groups and contingencies that are being sought after, but they're targeting right now Black males and saying that Kamala Harris is not getting their support. So Barack Obama has been called upon to help with this effort with black males, and he was recently speaking in Pennsylvania, and has got a little backlash for his comments regarding black males wanting to support Kamala Harris because he's insisting maybe some of them don't want to vote for a female, or I'm not really sure, but he's been called upon. We've got a little effort from Bill Clinton. He's out there on the campaign stump, and then we've got Jennifer Garner, the actress, has been called upon. I think this is interesting, Kelly. She makes
Yeah.
this comment.
For having me here. You all have been so attentive. Listen, I know you've knocked and knocked, and I know you've called and called. I know you've given and given, and you're worn out. But the truth is, you are the front lines. This is it. I mean, I'm looking at these beautiful faces, these women, and these strong men. God, is there anything sexier than a man who is like meant for Kamala?
Okay, so there we have it. It's sexy if you vote for Kamala Harris.
Wow.
Well, that was that's interesting. Um,
So I did see some chatter today about this issue, and it was not specific to African American young males, but to young males, period. And a campaign that the Democrats have begun a week or two ago to lure back, if they lost, lure back young voters, young male voters. They're seeing a weakness in their policies, a weakness in their support, and they've got a big push going. And there was some commentary about the hypocrisy of their policies and rhetoric over the last 10 or 15 years that have brought them to this moment where young males are not supporting the Democratic Party, and now a placating to and a condescension to those same voters, looking for their support now with Kamala. Anyway, I think their issue is very broad, though I think for some of their top folks, they have narrowed in on this African American vote because they've got a strategy in the urban areas to attract minority votes to thwart the Republican candidate.
should we take a break here?
Let's do that.
This segment of Jack News is sponsored by Canonizer.com. Build consensus in a divided world with Canonizer.
Hello, my name is Jim Bennett, and I'm here as always with Kelly Cassidy. Kelly, how are you, sir?
Jim, I'm doing pretty darn good. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I'm very concerned about what Donald Trump and his supporters have been saying about the natural disasters in Florida, particularly Hurricane Helene, and as well as Hurricane Milton. Donald Trump is telling everybody that the federal government isn't responding, the governors are not able to get the White House on the phone, that FEMA is completely abandoning all of these people. And I think it's a shameful thing to be doing, especially since the governors, Republican governors, are pointing out that this is simply not true, that they have been in close consultation with the White House and with Washington, D.C., and that they are receiving the kind of financial aid and the kind of resources that are necessary to deal with the natural disaster. I think it's shameless and, quite frankly, disgusting to play politics with people's lives like this. In times past, politics stopped when we had these kinds of natural disasters and we had to come together. But in the era of Trump, that's no longer the norm. And I think that that's a colossal disaster adding to the natural disaster. What do you think?
Well, Jim, this might surprise you, but I have a little different take than you. I have found in my lifetime that nothing brings out the politics more than a disaster. And usually it's a time to point out all the wrongs of the party in power. You look back to George Bush's handling of Katrina and other natural disasters. There was no end to criticism about his handling of the disaster. I think a bigger problem is that FEMA has made their goals, number one, equity, number two, climate change, and number three, being prepared for disaster. I think that our premier agency for disaster relief should have disaster relief as their first goal. I was watching a news story recently, somebody on the ground in one of the now remote towns in North Carolina who said yesterday, I have yet to see anybody from FEMA. Maybe they're here, but they haven't made it to our town. But fortunately, our community is uniting. So while I agree that Donald Trump is prone, like every other politician, to misspeaking, to exaggeration, boasting, and just, again, maybe outright lying, he's not alone in that, and disasters seem to bring out the worst in politicians, not the best.
But one area where we are in complete agreement, Kelly, is that our thoughts are with the people threatened by these hurricanes, and we support every effort to keep them safe. We invite all of you to go to canonizer.com and join the camp that represents your point of view. You can join the topic that represents my point of view or the topic that represents Kelly's point of view, or if neither one of those represent you, you can create a camp of your own. Until next time, we'll see you on the Jack News. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thanks, Jim. Check out this and other topics on canonizer.com. Build consensus in a divided world with Canonizer.
All right, welcome back to the Jack News. And we're talking a little bit about Tim Walz, the knucklehead. So we've been trying to track some of his latest escapades. Have you heard of anything new, Kelly?
Well, you know, Ron, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. That's what Tim Walz said this Sunday on one of the Sunday shows when asked to explain when he supports or intimates that the Democratic Party is socialist, or he doesn't shy away from that nomenclature. That was his response. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, as opposed to completely walking away from that statement. So it looks like he may have to, or the campaign may have to walk back that statement, as they have with some of the others.
Well, I kind of enjoyed this video of Walz when he went pheasant hunting. So he went out and brought the press with him while he was going out on a pheasant hunt. And he was all dressed in his brand new gear. And he was trying to, I guess, say that he was a hunter, although he couldn't load his shotgun. And the video shows him telling the media that he's had a shotgun for a long time and he's been using it for trap shooting, but he couldn't figure out how to put the shotgun shells inside the shotgun, which was, I don't know if that was just a complete made-up story that he's ever used a shotgun before or what that was about, but he didn't know what he was doing. And this kind of follows on the heels of Walz's support of the Electoral College going away. So he's got this thing up his craw that he wants to get rid of the Electoral College and go to a popular vote. And he's been singing that song at a whole bunch of different media experiences and all kinds of talks and speeches he's been giving. Unfortunately, the D's don't go along with it. So Kamala Harris came out and said, "No, we don't necessarily support that, Tim. We're not necessarily looking to see the Electoral College go away, and be careful on what you're saying." Anyway.
I think you're seeing the two-pronged strategy of picking Tim Walz. One is when we've talked about his folksiness, and so his appeal to that rural voter, and then his manliness. So he was a football coach, and he's a hunter, and he's all these other things. He was in the military, and again, trying to shore up some male support in the Democratic Party, and then also some support in rural America. And he doesn't quite seem to be making it all the way to the finish line on either
No,
one of
it's
those
more
two.
of a comedic effort than it is really anything else. But
Yep.
anyway, I also found something else interesting from former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. He made a comment recently in the news that he made a prediction that Kamala and our friend Tim Walz, the knucklehead, would soon go into a full-scale panic. And he believed that they would start doing some crazy stuff, more crazy stuff, because they're going to see some numbers start dropping on their behalf. He also further on prophesied that we're going to see in the next little bit Democratic Senate and House candidates acknowledging that Trump will be victorious in November and stating, hey, I know you're probably voting for Trump, and hey, he's probably going to be in the White House, so maybe you should vote for me as a Democrat so I can help balance out the whole government. So keep me in office or get me elected as a Democrat so I can provide balance when Trump's president. So these two prophecies by Gingrich, I think, sound pretty interesting. And what we're seeing is a trend line of the Republicans gaining more support. At least we're seeing it in the Senate races, and we're seeing it, well, in the toss-up Senate races, and we're seeing it in the presidential swing states. So that's foretelling, Kelly.
It's quite a turn in this campaign from end of August, huh?
It is. So I also pulled up some numbers on immigration because I know that people talk about immigration and they want to know what's really been going on because there's a lot of hay out there about, how many people are really getting across that border unauthorized under this Biden-Harris administration and what was going on before. So here's the actual numbers coming. In 2020, 405,000 unauthorized border crossing. In 2021, that went up 4 times. So when Biden took office that next year, the unauthorized border crossings increased fourfold, 1.65 million. In 22, it was 2.2 million. And in 23, it was 2.1 million. So we're getting 4 and 5 times the increase of undocumented, unauthorized border crossings from the Trump administration to the Biden-Harris administration.
If only we had Kamala Harris as the border czar, none of this would have happened.
Good point, Kelly. Good point. All right. So what are you seeing as the betting odds right now in Vegas?
So much like what you're seeing in the polling, we're obviously seeing the reflection of that in Vegas. So Trump went from the long shot to what looks like the sure shot. So it's a 50 over the course of your 8-week period. He's gone. It's been a 50-point a 50-point swing from Harris to Trump. So Harris was the sure bet by negative 138 and is now plus 110, and Trump went from plus 110 to minus 110. So it's what we're seeing is that the odds are that Trump's going to be president of the United States if everybody's taking the bet today. If you were calling this race 4 weeks ago, you were looking at a much different landscape than today.
Well, people could have made some good money on this bet. Well, interesting. I mean, it is foretelling that people that put their money on the line, betting on trends, and they're watching the same trend that we're seeing of Trump and the Republicans. So, Kelly, I think that's it for us for today. So,
All right.
thank you very much. Thanks for being on the Jack News podcast.
Thank you, Ron.
Bye.